Rebel Rhyder é uma atriz e modelo americana que atua em filmes eróticos. Natural de Phoenix, Arizona, Rebel é formada em engenharia elétrica, área na qual atuava antes de iniciar sua carreira pornográfica em 2019. Hoje, com 28 anos de idade e quase meio milhão de seguidores em suas redes sociais, Rebel é uma figura renomada na indústria de conteúdo adulto, tendo trabalhado com produtores consagrados tanto nos Estados Unidos quanto na Europa. Nós do Gyn Rock City tivemos a oportunidade de conversar com ela e esse bate-papo você confere aqui. Hopefully everything is going to be okay. All right, great. So first of all, I want to thank you very much for making time to talk to us. I'm pretty sure that your Brazilian friends are going to be excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's great. Thank you very much. And before we start, I guess the best thing would be for you to tell whoever might not know you, who you are, what it is that you do, and why it is that you're famous.
So I'm Rebel Rhyder, and I am an adult performer. I shoot videos, I guess really all over the world. I've been here. I go to Europe a lot to shoot. I do some of my own stuff, some studio work. Yeah.
And how long have you been doing adult material?
About 4.5 years.
And how did that start? Like one day you were just sitting at home and you said, okay, why not?
Yeah, so it was basically around COVID time. I was working like in a totally different industry. I was an engineer and I was just like camming on the side, and then COVID started, and it was just a really bad industry to be in. So I decided to give OnlyFans a try, and I loved it, and I just basically never went back.
You're an electric engineer, right?
Yes.
And before COVID, were you working in that area? Is that the kind of work that
Yes.
you're doing?
Yep.
I imagine you're a guidance counselor in high school. Like, all right, we have two options for you. You can be an electric engineer or you can be an adult performer. Doesn't sound like those things belong in the same.
They're both great career opportunities.
I imagine so. But what was the motivation? Like you said, I imagine one of the motivations was financial because of COVID. But was there something else? Like, were you always curious about your sexuality, trying this kind of things, or was it primarily just financial?
Yeah, so I mean, it was something that I enjoyed as well. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I like being able to explore and try new things. So yeah, that was also a motivation. And I think another motivation was just like the flexibility overall. Like, I can decide if I want to travel or if I want to shoot for studios or if I want to produce my own stuff. There's just a lot of flexibility in how that's handled.
Right. So, but when you first started, you didn't work for any studios. You just work with your own production, right?
Right.
See, this is one of the things, like we talk to a lot of girls that are kind of getting started in this, adult content production type of thing. And one of the misconceptions that I think some of them have is that they think it's kind of effortless. And I always imagine that for you to be someone who's going to have a name in the like, I imagine that it takes a lot of work. So I'm not sure, like, how often did you produce your own content? Like how active were you? Like what platform were you using?
Oh man. Okay. So when I first started, I was using pretty much any platform that I could find that allowed me to sell my stuff. I had a profile on and I was like putting my stuff on there. But when I first started, I would go to events like the Exotica Expos, AVN, stuff where like a bunch of creators were in the same area. And I would just shoot constantly, like I would come home after like a 3 or 4 day weekend with like 20 new videos,
Nice.
That I could
you
slowly
would,
release.
You would use these meetings as a network place where you would meet other performers, and
absolutely.
And you guys would exchange like, oh, you do a video for me, you work on a video with me, I work in a video with you. Is that kind of
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So there's like two main ways that people do that. Well, I mean, you could always like pay the talent, but usually what people do is they'll either film one video and both of them get a copy to sell, or they'll film two video, one for each person.
Right. Okay. So, and when you first started, you started working with um, uh, uh, other producers, like not other producers, but other talent as well, or did you do like the solo thing first? Like how deep did you go right away? I guess that's the question.
So I guess like when I first started, it was just camming, and that was when I was also working as an engineer. So that was just solo stuff. And shortly after I started doing that, I had one of my fans on that site asked if I'd ever be interested in shooting porn. And I'm like, that sounds fun. And he put me in contact with a local studio. They're called Glory Hole Swallow, and they're like super amateur. But it's like an adult bookstore type thing. Okay. So I decided to try that just for fun. And that was like my very first studio shoot. And they just let me do whatever I want. So I did everything.
Okay. So the other thing that I found out when I was researching for this is that you're married, right? And
yes.
Were you married when you first started in the adult industry?
Yes, I was.
All right. Mm-hmm. And were you and your husband in the lifestyle in any way before you started, or was this like the first experience you guys had?
So we were sort of, but it was more of like the fetish community. So we do like a lot of like rope, like shibari ties.
Right.
So that was kind of like more the community that we were in. And then occasionally we'd meet another open couple that we would swap with or, play with.
Okay. So you guys already had some experiences in that area. Okay.
Right.
So your husband is a dom and you were a sub, I imagine.
Yeah, usually. Usually that's how it works.
Okay. All right.
Won't let me go the other way very often.
All right. And how does that work? Because like, even though like I imagine nowadays with the whole camming thing and talent being owner of their own content, things kind of became more widespread. So like porn is not as underground as it used to be. But I imagine Absolutely. There is still a big stigma when it comes to some friends, family members, that kind of stuff. How did you have to deal with that kind of stuff? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I did. So being married, it was interesting because, we have my side of the family and his side of the family. His side of the family was super accepting, like right away. They thought it was cool. Like they were totally on board with it. Some members of the family even like had questions about starting your own OnlyFans or, camming or whatever. And then my side of the family didn't really like it that much. As you can imagine, I'm sure not a lot of parents would want that for their kids, but it took a while, and now I think they accept it. They still don't really support it, but they're at the point where they accept it.
Right. Okay. So in a certain way, you guys were able to patch up these differences. And,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Any problems with friends, like friendships that,
Not really. I think a lot of that though came from like my husband and I, we have a age gap relationship, and a lot of our friends were from the community that we were in, like the fetish community. So our friends just kind of thought it was cool.
All right. And how did this transition from becoming like from producing your own material to becoming like to working to big studios? How did that work? Was that gradually or?
It was very gradually. So for me, I have never had an agent. Whereas like a lot of girls, they start out, they get an agent and their agent books the shoots for them. For me, I just started doing my own stuff, and then eventually like studios or directors started noticing it on Twitter, and then they would like DM me like, hey, would you be interested in coming to shoot for us? And It was a very, very slow growth.
Okay. And now you work, like you said, you work all over the world. So you work for American companies, you work for European companies. Is there a big difference between the way Americans do their porn and the way the Europeans do their stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the main difference, the reason that I go over to Europe a lot is that the rules are different. So you're allowed to shoot things over there that you're not allowed to shoot over here, or, they don't really like to shoot over here. So for me, that kind of equates to like the more extreme anal stuff.
Right.
So it's just like, I wouldn't say I enjoy one over the other. They're just different. I enjoy doing both.
So in Europe, you can do harder things, let's say.
Yeah, you can do harder things.
All right. So that's the other thing. Like the kind of stuff you do, I don't know how we would consider, but I consider like extreme porn, right? Because there is a lot of gangbangs, there is a lot of anal stuff, there is a lot of other things that go on, and in a way, for the people that are watching, this is almost like it's not like you guys are actors, like you guys are athletes, because you're doing things that don't look comfortable at all. And you're doing this for a long period of time, right? So, regular sex lasts for 15, 20 minutes. You guys do this for an hour, an hour and a half. So, what kind of preparation goes into this? Like, how do you guys prepare yourselves? Or you don't? How does that work? Because honestly, one of the things is like some of these positions, they don't look comfortable at all. It's like, how can they be in this position?
Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
I mean, like stretching beforehand helps. A lot of girls enjoy doing like yoga and stuff. Just staying active, keeping yourself healthy. That goes a long way. And then another thing that isn't really like a real life thing, but for me, since I do a lot of anal, that requires its own preparation on set that a lot of people just don't really think about.
All right. The other thing is recently, I might be mistaken, but I don't know how recent this was, but you had like, I think you produced a big gangbang, right? Like 100 people.
I did, 100 guys.
How many guys? I'm sorry.
100.
100 guys. All right. I just the logistic of it sounds crazy, right? But
it took like 6 months to plan.
And was this from your own stuff, or okay? So it was your own production. And how was that? Well, how was that experience?
It was a lot of fun. So I actually teamed up with a director. He's also my really good friend. He's from Tadpole Studios. And he helped me organize the whole thing because he had so many connections in the area that we were shooting of guys and like testing centers and the location that we filmed. So we kind of like teamed up on that. And I got the 2D version. He got the VR version because his thing is like VR.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we worked that out. But yeah, the logistics of it, you had to find all the guys. And I think we had like a list of like 230 something guys because we knew like probably half of them wouldn't show up or whatever. But yeah, finding the guys, screening the guys, getting everyone tested, getting everyone to the location, all of that. Oh my God. Paperwork.
And at the end, everything worked out.
Yeah. Yep, everything worked out great. I was happy.
How long did that take?
So the whole event, it was like a whole day thing, like from when people started showing up to like when we were wrapping up and cleaning up. But the shoot part, it was a lot faster than I thought it was going to take. I think it took about 3 hours.
Okay. So, yeah, still sounds like way too much sex going on in one day.
Yeah. Well, and then like what I didn't expect, I needed a couple weeks to recover because from like the constant like friction down there, I got friction burns.
So that's another thing. After like how like after you do a scene like that, I mean not the big gangbang, but like a regular scene, how much time do you need to recover from that before you can do another one?
So I'm at the point where like for like a regular scene, I don't really need a whole lot of recovery. Just because I film consistently.
Okay.
But I always try, like when I go on my Europe trips, for example, I'm about to take another trip. I'll be there for a month. And then when I come back, I'll probably take a month off or so just to let my body recover and relax.
Okay. And going back to the idea of the extreme sex, um, how how long did it take you to get to that point? Because I imagine that the first content that you created wasn't that hard. So um, how did that happen? Like you,
So I guess I started really before I started filming, just with my husband, like trying things and, like buying new toys or, trying a DP or something. So by the time I got in the industry, I had already experienced anal, I had already experienced a DP and all of that stuff. And then for me, I like challenges and I like trying new things. So like when I had my first DP, I was like, okay, well now that I had that, I want my first gangbang. And when I had my first gangbang, I was like, all right, well I want to try double anal or I want to try double vag or whatever. And I just kind of progressed from there.
okay.
So
And
I would say
how,
probably like a year or two.
and how pleasurable is it, or isn't it?
I think it's very pleasurable. Some of the positions are the most uncomfortable part, but like the sex, I like it.
Okay, great. So you do have fun while you're shooting
Yes.
your scene. Okay, yeah,
Yes, I
because
have
I
a
think
lot of
that's
fun.
one of the things that because that's one of the questions that we ask ourselves is like when you look historically speaking, like at all the porn stars, the ones that were more successful than the others, and they weren't necessarily the most beautiful, right? So there was another element to the girls that really um, were successful, and I think part of it
Yeah,
is like this. I like you can be a good actress, but like at the end of the day, the person who is watching, they kind of see if the person is having fun or not. So there is a difference
absolutely.
between a performer that is kind of enjoying that moment and a performer that's just there. And I think
Absolutely.
the people who watch it can notice this, and that's I think that's my theory. I don't know, but
Yeah,
as a
absolutely. I think
consumer,
you're 100%
yeah.
right.
What about you? Do you watch porn?
Um, Not really. Like when I watch porn, it's usually to get ideas for my own stuff.
Okay,
Because it's a little bit odd. When I do watch porn for enjoyment, it has to be like amateur porn or something. Because if I watch studio porn, it's just like watching my friends fuck on camera.
right,
So it's a little
right.
different.
I understand. Um, okay, what kind of like you mentioned that you don't have a what do you call it? A manager. A manager, is that the word that we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you mentioned that you don't have a manager. Would this? What kind of advice would you give to people that are starting in the industry now? Should they look for a manager to kind of help them navigate through this, or do you think the way you did it was best? I mean, it not only related to management, but in general, like what kind of advice would you
Right.
give to people that are just starting out?
I think I guess it just depends on what you're looking for. Because doing it the way that I did, it's a very, very slow growth. And you need to like be very good at managing your time, managing like reaching out to people, following up with people. You have to be okay with getting rejected or not hearing anything at all. So I would say like if you're very good at like time managing or managing your own schedule and reaching out to people and networking, then I would say absolutely do it yourself because it's worth it. It's a slow growth. But if you're maybe not as good as that, or you just don't want to deal with it and you just want to like be like, hey, you have this shoot, and this shoot booked next week, show up to these places, then I would say go the agent route. Um, And I wouldn't say, there's one right way to do it. There's multiple ways to be
Right.
successful.
Um, yeah. One of the things I think for the girls in Brazil, especially, um, it's because I don't know. I don't think we have as much of a tradition of producing this kind of content. I think it's getting better now. Now I see like, for example, one of the companies like Legal Porno, I think is the company.
Yeah.
There's some new Brazilian talent that's been working for them and producing a lot of stuff. It's actually looking really good. So, but for a long time, the Brazilian performers, they weren't up to par with the international ones for some reason. I don't know if it was the production or if it was the performers themselves. But the thing is, the whole thing is, how do you get connected to these studios and start, like, especially when you're geographically so far away from them? How do you do that?
Yeah, that one is a hard one. Just because, like, from my experience, I live in Arizona, so there's not a lot of studios near where I'm at. But I think because I started just by making my own content and I would travel to the expos or to where the studios are located, I think that helped a lot. I would say if you're in an area and you want to get started and like you're starting from scratch, I would say just start with your own stuff. You know, like you can reach out to studios, say that you're interested in shooting for them, but they probably won't respond or, whatever
Not until
if
you
they
have
don't
a
know.
following or some kind of name.
Right, right. So I would say, yeah, start with your own stuff, start producing, on OnlyFans or ManyVids or any of the various sites out there. And then, once you build up your name a little bit, then you'll probably have people reaching out to you.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's good. Another thing that I was gonna ask is like, there's a lot. There are a lot of myths about the porn industry. I mean, I guess some of them are not myths, but there are a lot of biases. A lot of people, they have their opinions about how things work. And every once in a while, when we have an opportunity to speak to someone in the industry, you kind of see that things are not just one way, right? So, um, personally, for you, your experience, did you ever have like a bad experience where people were trying to force you to do something that you didn't want to do, or when you got a deal that didn't pay you what you expected to get paid, that kind of stuff, which happens in many other industries as well. But I mean, I'm asking specifically for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that that happens more so when you're new and you don't really know any better, you know? Um, sorry. There was one instance where, I just didn't thoroughly vet a person and, I thought I was going to a shoot for a certain studio and it turns out it was just like some guy pretending to be with that studio. So I did the shoot and everything and, I ended up not getting paid at all. So that kind of sucked. um, but I would say like you have to be really, really good at vetting people and like standing up for your own boundaries. Um, I'm at the point now where if someone wanted me to do something on set that we hadn't talked about that I wasn't comfortable with, I would feel completely comfortable just walking off set, being like, you know what, this isn't going to work. I'm not a good fit for your company. I'm just gonna get out of here. But you need to be comfortable doing that. You need to be okay with asserting yourself and being clear with your boundaries.
Do you think earlier in your career it would have been more difficult?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's not the norm, right? Like,
No. Or it shouldn't be, at least.
Okay.
There's assholes in every industry. But.
Right. I imagine so, yes. And what kind of advice would you give to new performers, like in general? What do you think?
In general,
Nowadays, what is the way? What is the way to go? How they should, you know?
Yeah, so I guess in general, like my biggest piece of advice for new performers is it kind of goes along with the last question, the last subject is basically like don't let anyone tell you that you like have to perform something or that you can't perform something that you want to perform in order to be successful. Like you're in charge of your own career. You know, if you don't want to do anal, don't do anal. Like that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It just means you'll have a different path to success. Or if you want to like do something great, like if you want to like do puke porn or whatever, like go for it, do it. You know, don't let people say that like, oh, well, if you do that, you know, you're not going to get booked because nobody's going to want to work with you. It's, you know, it's all in your hands. Like you're in control of your own career.
So that doesn't happen. Like in other words, like girls that do like the more extreme stuff, they still get booked for other things that are not so extreme. So they don't have this kind of.
I mean, I do.
Yeah. Yeah, but most of the stuff you do is usually very hardcore.
Yeah.
So but that's the stuff you kind of like to do.
Yep. So I would say, perform what you like to perform. You know, don't let someone tell you that you have to do something that you don't want to do, or that you can't do something that you want to do.
Okay. And what are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future. So the next near future. Next month, I'll be in Europe. I will be shooting in Prague for the first half. And then the second half, I will be shooting a movie with Rocco Siffredi, which will be a lot of fun.
Have you met him before?
I have. I met him the last time I was in Europe, or 2 times ago. It was back in November. And he directed a couple of things that I shot. And then he wanted to bring me back to film a movie. So I'll be doing that.
Are you going to be performing with him? Or is he just a direct? Yeah?
I hope so.
It's a living legend. That's great. So going to Europe for a month, Prague, and then is he in Italy? Is that?
Yep. So from Prague, I'll go to Italy and I'll spend, I think, like 4 days there. And then I'll go to Budapest and then we'll finish out the movie there.
And all this is for other studios. This is not your own material that you're producing.
Right. So, you know, I might meet someone there that I want to shoot my own stuff with, but as of right now, it's just studio work.
I visited your website and I wasn't sure, but I see that you have a list of the people that have performed with you in the website. Are you do you plan to become like a producer, like producing other people's stuff, or how?
Yeah, so I started learning how to do more camera work and like editing stuff. Like I love that kind of stuff. So I can see myself in the future. I have a few ideas for websites that I'd like to produce. So I can absolutely see myself doing that in the future.
Okay. The other thing that I was curious about is I've seen like in some other interviews, people ask you about your hobbies, and you're a big gamer, I guess. You play video games, right?
Yes.
It's one of the things.
Yes, I do.
But also I see your Instagram, you have nature-related Instagram where you take hikes and you...
Yeah, so, it's like my the wholesome side of me.
Okay. And how often do you go for these hikes? And is this like in your backyard? Is this like something?
Yeah, I live super close to a lot of amazing hiking. So when I go on trips, I'm constantly shooting, and then when I'm here, like this past month, almost the past few weeks, I've been hiking pretty much every day. It's been great. I'm probably going out later today.
I am actually afraid of this kind of... I saw that movie, was it 177 hours, 172 hours? You know the movie I'm talking about? I saw that movie, and now I don't go anywhere by myself anymore because I'm afraid I'll get stuck somewhere. Have chopped off my
and I'm just like, I just like getting lost by myself in the middle of nowhere. That's like my best day ever.
I once visited a friend. He lived in Vegas, and he lived in a little gated community, I guess. I don't know what it was, but like right after his backyard, you could see the desert, right? So like, he had a fence in the backyard, and then everything back there was a desert. And I asked him if he ever... I asked him, do you ever go on hikes in the desert? And he said, like, a lot of people get lost. Like they go into the desert, and even though they're close to their homes, like because there's no reference points, people get lost very easily there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so don't get lost. I guess that's don't get lost. I don't know, let me see if I have any more questions. Any plans to ever come to Brazil? I don't know why you would, but
I mean, honestly, I would love to for like a vacation or whatever. My dad used to go there on work. Brazilian food is amazing.
Yeah, they have some very good food here. All right. Well, Rebel, I want to thank you very much. We're actually running out of time, but I want to thank you very much for the time you spend with us. And I'm sure that the Brazilian fans are going to love it. And I'm going to post this as soon as I can add some subtitles to it so people can read what we're talking about. And it was lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great talking to you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.